Welcome to another episode of the Wealth Blueprint. Today, I'm honored to have our guest as Victoria Whitehead. Victoria is an attorney, a policymaker, and the CEO of the West Texas Home Builders Association, and she provides a lot of insights on the growth and expansion of Texas and West Texas in general, and some of the changes we can expect to see in the coming years. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please welcome Victoria Whitehead.
And then 9 times out of 10, it's not good. I'm like, this is why you're getting headaches.
Yep.
You're not drinking enough water. You're not getting enough protein or nutrients. Yep. And he's like, well, one nugget's good. I'm like, no, it's not.
How old is your son?
6 and 3. The oldest is 6.
I have a 6, 3, and 2.
Oh, nice.
Year old. And we're working on
girls?
number 4 right now. I have
is
all
that what
girls.
You're saying? Okay,
yes,
yeah.
I have all girls. But my IVF doctor, my wife's.
It could be yours.
I mean, yeah. I'm represented by them, but they belong to my wife.
Yeah.
Did we get that on camera? Yes.
Yeah. So they called yesterday. We've been waiting. So we got like 8 eggs, or 10 eggs, sorry, and sent them off to be, tested and all that stuff. And I've got 6 boys, all healthy, and 4 girls, all healthy. So all 10 of them are viable.
Yeah.
I'm like, should I go for 10? Should we just do all 10? My wife was like, no, we'll have to get surrogates if you want to do that. Yeah. But we wanted to have a boy, so that was the whole plan. And the healthiest one is a boy, so I'm very hopeful about that.
Heck yeah.
Got to even the playing field in the house a little bit.
Yes. I'm the only girl of 4 boys. Yeah. So I think the dynamic of like all one gender and then one other is it's a pretty fun dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like growing up with you have 3 brothers?
I have 4 brothers.
Or you have 4 brothers. Mm-hmm. Okay. What was that like? Are you the youngest?
I knew how to fight really fast.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm just kidding. Second to the youngest.
Okay.
Yeah. But I thought it was great. Like I grew up, I think, having an environment around me where like I was raised to be tough, and I was raised to be like confident, and I had to make sure that I could hold my own. But also like I had the biggest protectors in my corner.
Yeah.
But it was great. And like we ranged 47 to 31. So like I was, in elementary school with a cool brother who played for Hereford High School's football team.
Yeah.
And so it was just cool like dynamics.
Yeah. Gives you like an elevated status in school.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Like you don't mess with me. I've got a guy who's a lineman on the high school football team as my brother. Yeah. Or something. Yeah.
I'm sure dating you in high school was probably a scary proposition. Like, she's got 4 brothers.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had all sisters. I was the only boy.
Okay, so that would be your dynamic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. How many sisters?
I have 2 sisters, but then I had 3 stepsisters.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was in a house with all women. And then when my mom and dad got divorced, she left my dad and got into a gay relationship. So I had 2 moms and then 5 sisters total. So that was insane.
After I had my first, and we had 2 boy dogs.
Yeah.
And like I really wanted a girl, because in my head I was like, okay, if I have a boy and a girl, then I solidly know we're okay to be done.
There you go.
But came up with a boy, which absolutely love him. But I sat there and like Jeffrey got so mad because like the next week I was like, going to I need a feminine up my house. Like I need like soft curtains, and like Wayne got a bunch of decor.
He proposed that?
No, I did it because I was like, nah, I know we're having a boy, and it says this is like a boy fest in here.
Yeah.
And I need to like make our house have a little bit of a feminine appeal to it, because I don't know, my style is like very modern, like woodsy, I don't know, modern wood, earth. But I was like, here's some flowers. Like we're gonna put some flowers on the wall to make it girly, because this is the only girlies that I have. Yeah,
my house is very girly. And so I just stay at my office the whole time. I light candles that smell like tobacco and leather. And that's as manly as it gets.
And you're in financial planning?
No, real estate development.
Real estate development.
Yeah.
So do you have like specific areas of your portfolio where you're like, this is girl A's wedding plan. This is girl B's wedding plan. Like, do you plan business wise? Like,
that is a great question. Yes, I do. So I set up companies for each one of my kids, and I own property in all of those companies for their benefit, basically. And yeah, that's like their college savings plan. But like another reason I set up this podcast and like the Instagram channel and all of that is because you can actually, like, if your kids are on, camera and on your Instagram account, you can pay them up to $15,000 a year.
Oh yeah.
As like a marketing fee or like, modeling or whatever. And so I started doing that so that, one, I could teach them how to manage money. And then also, like, once they have money in there, they're going to have to make a decision on where they go to college and how to pay for it. And it's going to come out of their own money. Yeah. And then from that $15,000, you can contribute $7,500 a year to a Roth IRA. And so that can grow tax-free in whatever they invest in.
We do that. We had started that with my 6-year-old when he was 4. And when I was working with our financial advisor last year, so son would have been 2, I was like, hey, I mean, he picked up sticks at the ranch. Like, is that not work? And she goes, yeah, it's work. I was like, solid, 15 grand here. Like, yeah. But when I grew up in Hereford, big ag feedlot area, my dad, like, I think he had heart attacks when I was 11. And so he had this like realization that, oh crap, like we have a small family business. It was a trucking company at the time. Okay. And he was like, if I died, you guys are literally screwed because no one else knows how to run this business. Yeah. So he was on this huge mission of getting everybody set up. But basically it was like a wheel and spoke type system for a family business where he owned the trucking logistics company. And then each one of us, even at 14 to 17, owned semi-trucks. Wow. And so we all had semi-trucks and trailers, and we leased those back to the family business that then operated it, which helped from a like financial security perspective if you had issues with one of them or different things. But like that's what helped pay for my undergrad. Was I went into undergrad with 3 semi-trucks and 2 trailers that made revenue that I didn't have to necessarily manage because I leased it to the family business. But a huge passion to make sure like, hey, I'm setting you up with your own little company so that you had income streams and didn't have to necessarily go waitress throughout college. Yeah, that's genius. So you're an attorney, right? Yeah. So you went to undergrad, and then did the trucks pay for law school too? No, law school was more expensive than the trucks. And at that time, I decided I was just like on this mission of like, I'm going to go do my own thing. So I sold them, so that I could kind of help fund. I actually went to law school because I wanted to work in policy. In undergrad, I had worked 2 legislative sessions and worked in D.C. So that's free labor in many instances. So wanted to go that route, but ended up doing debt for law school. One of the worst decisions I ever made on the debt side of things. Yeah. But wanted to go for policy, and so had to kind of fund working in government, which is sometimes very poor. Yeah. You need some like rich benefactors to really make that work out. What was that like working in policy in DC? Like seeing how the sausage is made, so to speak. Absolutely loathed DC. So I had worked in Austin for a. That means you're a good person, I think. The fact that you hate Washington DC. Well, I say that about people that hate Los Angeles too. I'm like, oh, you're probably a good human being. Well, I mean, I'd gone to Austin. I'd worked for a senator who is an excellent leader from West Texas, and it's 180 days start to finish, no matter what. And so you saw like within that time frame, bills start and bills end, and like. You have to work hard because if you don't finish it by the end, it's a year and a half, 2 years before. Oh, you're working on actually passing or putting together legislation to pass as a policy? Yeah. Wow. So like I saw that whole process in Austin, and it was awesome because like we solved problems in 180 days, and then went to DC to work for Senator Hutchison, and it was right after Obama's second reelection. And I worked for a Republican senator. So there was absolutely nothing going on.
Yeah, everything was
And
stonewall.
Oh, it was Stonewall. I mean, I was there during a cool historical time. Like, that was when the Affordable Care Act went through the Supreme Court and gay marriage went through the Supreme Court. So I was there during, like, a cool season to see a lot of history. But from a policy perspective, it was so disheartening because I was like, I didn't do anything to help anybody.
Yeah.
So immediately went back and worked another legislative session and found passion there.
Yeah. Do you think that that's like why this system works so well, though, is because it's hard to make changes? Like, I know that there's a couple different like theories about it, but basically the way that the Constitution's written is that making any big swinging changes is hard to do, and that's been, loosened a lot, I think, over probably the last like 20 years. But do you think that's the purpose, is like make it hard to get anything through, and then when you do get something through, it's so chalked up and, edited that, only 15% of your bill still remains?
Well, I think it's set up to make sure that more minds come together, so that greater representation is had to make sure like policy is actually good for the whole.
Mm-hmm.
I think you see a lot of usurping of that nowadays with the amount of executive orders that presidents do.
It's
I think if you talk to most, especially like conservative Republicans, like executive orders, while do serve some benefit to help push some policy that is needed.
Yeah.
That's not how this is supposed to be.
And it's easily reversed when the next administration comes in. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, we're going to double the amount of executive orders.
And it skews, I think, for the American public, the idea of like how law is actually made.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like, okay, well, I can elect this guy and then I can elect this guy and things are going to happen. And it's like, well, it's not technically the process. It needs to like go through House and Senate. But even in Austin, most like really good major ideas, I mean, it's always a general rule of thumb that it takes 3 sessions for it to pass. So you do one session where you plan it, you start the discussion, the second session you really like grow the idea, and the third is like, all right, let's get it past the finish line.
Yeah.
So a lot of like your bigger reform type stuff, like it takes a while.
So do you think that the Texas House of Representatives and the way bills are passed here are more efficient than DC?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Like in comparison, how would you compare them?
Well, and if you look at Texas and general statistics, like we still actually, and you don't see it in the news media, it's not reflected accurately, but there's really only 10 to 20 bills a session, the last couple of sessions, that actually get passed on party lines. And almost everything else is passed unanimously or supermajority. And you don't see that because that's not the story. It's like the party line bills are the ones that get 90% of the coverage.
Yeah.
But like we actually still work together. And a lot of times too, it's not necessarily ours versus D's, it's rural versus urban. And so like,
that's interesting.
You don't see that in
I didn't
DC.
Even think about that. Yeah.
I mean, if I was a Republican in DC and I voted for a D bill, I am going to have mailers at the wazoo against me next session or next election cycle saying I voted with the Democrats. And it's like, well, it might have been a good bill. It might have been for like a highway coming through Lubbock, Texas.
Isn't that crazy?
But it's just such a different beast.
Yeah. Like you're supposed to be like so loyal to your team that you would never vote for, even if it's a really good idea, that you would never vote for something proposed by a Democrat or Republican if you're on the other side. But maybe that's, slows the wheels of change.
Well, and I think that's like, especially even out here in West Texas and home building and different things, like policy is not politics. So like when we talk about school vouchers or we talk about impact fees, or we talk about all these things, like when you're looking at policy, it's, school vouchers can be upwards of 1,400 different ideas in one. Yeah, we talk about it as, oh, it's just a school voucher program. It's one. You're either for it or against it. And it's like, well, what's the policy and the details? And how does it affect me? And how does it affect this person? I mean, there's so many different dynamics that go into it. So to generalize some of that stuff is so tough. And that's how elections get won in some instances. But
It's because we have short attention spans.
Yeah.
They're just like, we need 3 talking points on a very complex bill that needs to be passed.
I used to do a ton of work in groundwater in Austin, and it's like groundwater, even like something so general, is so different across the state. So it's like, okay, so we're going to regulate something statewide that when you pump it in Hereford, Texas, is different than Abilene, is different than Dallas and the coast. Right. And so you can't necessarily regulate it all the same because it's just, but.
So do you still work in policy in your law firm?
So law firm is closed now. So when I took over as CEO of the Home Builders Association, wound that down a little bit. But at Home Builders, though, I still do legal and lobby work as part of my job.
How did that change come about? How did you make the transition from, owning a law firm to becoming the CEO? That's such a...
Well, so a lot of my law firm was geared towards general counsel services for small businesses, as well as lobbying efforts from a local perspective. Okay. So one of my clients was the Home Builders Association. And so I represented them for almost 2 years prior to coming into this role with all of their work before the city.
Gotcha.
So when this opportunity came up, they saw and it's a general trend in business associations to kind of have a different hire as your CEO, someone who can do the legal and lobby work in addition to managing the association. So when it came up, God voluntold me, it was just kind of it was a lot of things coming together at once from a journey perspective, but also a professional perspective.
And so that's been, 2 years now? How long have you been the CEO?
Almost 2 years in August.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. 2 years.
Yeah. Does it feel like shorter or longer?
It feels longer. I don't know, because I have that merge of even when I was the lobbyist, I attended all the board meetings, was very active. I was the program chair. Yeah. So people are like, you've been there for just a little bit. And I'm like, I've been around for a little while. But
so what is the Home Builders Association working on right now? What's your momentum?
So a lot of what we're gearing up towards is really advocacy. And advocating for homes and home building in West Texas. Mm-hmm. I think we've kind of seen a dynamic in the Lubbock area of maybe just some misrepresentation of what new home building brings to a community. And it's the health and the heartbeat of the economics of the community.
Oh, yeah.
How many new homes are being sold? That's what the mayor looks at when he does his State of the City report. But so from an advocacy perspective, we are trying to do a much better job of let's tell the story of what it means. So it's not old Lubbock versus new Lubbock, new Lubbock growth, while, it maybe puts a strain on infrastructure or timing or different things like the property tax and sales taxes that come from that are subsidizing other parts. And so really trying to be an advocate for those businesses.
Yep. And rooftops is really what drives everything else too. Mm-hmm. So residential rooftops drive commercial investment, drive, infrastructure, all the things that fall after that. Starts with the rooftop. Mm-hmm. And then incentivizing the city, hey, you need to run, infrastructure and roads further out. That expands the city, provides more opportunity, you name it. So I love that. And so you're not just, what is West Texas, what's under your purview?
So we have, I think, a total of 23 counties. Okay. From our HBA perspective, as far as because we're part of a state and a federation. Sure. So Texas Association of Home Builders, National Association. But predominantly in this neck of the woods, Lubbock is the spoke of eastern eastern border of New Mexico to the Cap Rock. And then we go as far north as Tulia down to La Mesa, kind of that north. That's where we hit the North Midland area.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so what are you seeing from a home builder's perspective on why is West Texas growing so fast?
We have some great resilience, I think, from an economic perspective. People talk about us being on an island kind of out here, and it's an island, but it's also a shield. Mm-hmm. So, even during some of the tough recession times coming out, the last couple of years, and even with high interest rates, like there's still a need for new home growth. And I think it's just because we've got a great economy. We've got, people don't see it, but we do have a diverse economy. But there's just a constant need too. And I think the need is also tied to our affordability factor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we need new homes, and people are growing and jobs are coming here mainly because too, people can afford it.
Right.
You can't talk to a new home builder in town too that hasn't sold a house to somebody from Utah or California or the West Coast. I mean, there's just a lot of people coming to West Texas, and a lot of times looking for more conservative, tax-friendly neck of the woods. But,
and they can actually work without regulation,
mm-hmm.
Restricting their ability to expand their business too.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that all the time. We've been here 7 years now, maybe longer. When we first started looking at this market, everything I do is like build for rent.
Mm-hmm.
So we build a bunch of property, single family duplex, we lease them out. We either sell them to investors or we keep them for ourselves. And especially during COVID, but even still now, we get so many people moving here, renting from us that, it's like California, Oregon, Washington State, Arizona, the Sunbelt states still a little bit, but
mm-hmm.
mainly you're getting like Northeast, Southeast, and the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, yeah. And I saw that in my law firm. I did a lot of new business development. So people would move here and they're like, okay, I need to get an LLC in Texas.
Sure.
And what does that look like? And man, I felt like Santa Claus sometimes because I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that reporting. This is the only franchise tax. Like, this is the only thing you got to worry about when you get above this amount. And they're like, wow, I can just seeing people and how they reacted of like, I can run a business without handcuffs.
Yep.
And it's the Texas story.
It really is. And I think that's why you can throw a dart almost anywhere in Texas and hit a city that's growing. Right?
Yeah.
It's because it's like the way that it's set up, business friendly. And Lubbock specifically, and I've said this so many times, I'm sure that our podcast listeners are tired of hearing me say it, but when a municipality is willing to spend its money like on good infrastructure mm-hmm. and building, the freeway system, the loop, trying to attract economic development and encourage businesses to move here and set up shop, what else could you ask for from your government? If they're doing the opposite, where they're like restricting you, regulating you, taxing you, making it hard to get licenses, all of those things,
mm-hmm.
that's a great way to lose like your high net worth individuals or people that could be high net worth individuals in the future. And they'll leave, like Chicago. They'll leave a Chicago. Tyson's Chicken just moved their entire headquarters to Arkansas and like Southeast Missouri because they're like, what are we doing? We've got 5,000 employees. We got to move. We got to do something.
Yeah. Well, and even in Texas, we have at the Home Builder Association a liaison committee, and we meet monthly with leadership from the staff with the city of Lubbock, and we meet monthly with the city of Wolf Earth even. And we sit down and we're like, hey, we understand and recognize we're partners in this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's such a great time for us to be like, what are you seeing here? They come and say, hey, we're struggling with this. Can you guys help us? And it's like, we don't always have to go do a city ordinance to correct something when the business association says, let us get communications out. Let us try to fix the problem. So there's a huge partnership there.
Yeah.
And it's not always as easy. I mean, the city's got strengths and constraints sometimes that like us home builders, with the impact fee discussion or infrastructure, like how do we pay for roads? Like what's the best solution? Right. And it's tough sometimes and they're hard conversations to have, but our partnership that we have here is unique in Texas. Like you can't do that in Dallas. You can't do that in Austin. The governments sometimes don't even talk to the home builders associations. And it's like, no, here we understand and recognize that for us to both succeed, we have to come to the table.
Yep.
And so it's pretty cool. Like
it is cool.
Especially as like a former government staff member or something, it's cool to see relationship, but also like healthy discussions.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I've built and developed real estate in 25 different states and I don't know, triple that in municipalities and planning departments you have to work with and deal with. Lubbock is so unique in the sense like they're still kind of like a sailboat and not a cruise ship when you're trying to make quick turns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like first of all, you have access. So you can sit down and talk like you were saying. It's more of a partnership. And then when a decision is made, even though, you know, sometimes it takes a little longer than you would like, it still gets done and through. Whereas in other municipalities, it's like molasses.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just like, oh my, this is going to take 2 years to get through, and I can't even start developing until that is, you know, through.
Yeah.
So I love seeing that. And I also think that like the impact that can have on growing a community is so beneficial when everybody is like just kind of working together. So what are you like the loop itself, right? And you're talking about putting in roads and all of those things. What are the impacts that has that people should know about that they don't know? Because they just look at it as like, oh, this is going to raise my property taxes.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, what's the overall plan?
So we're working and pretty active. We've had 2 very successful road bonds in the last couple of years. And I think when you're looking at like, what are my tools in the toolbox to fund infrastructure? Texas under state law gives you a variety of things. Mm-hmm. You can either like do it as general obligation bonds with the city. And what that means is like the city is actually using property taxes or sales taxes to pay for things. But the road bond, for example, is like a start and finish investment from a citizen in the community. Mm-hmm. And we're going to say, okay, over the next 10 years, we're all going to pay $25 each. And this is going to help build this road. Home builders, especially new home builders, now pay impact fees. So it's a pure tax that ultimately it gets taken out when you pull a permit, but it ultimately goes to the homeowner, right? Yep. In certain areas of town only, where the new growth is needed. So that's a tool in the toolbox. And then, so I think like we're seeing a continued discussion of we as a city did not vote for, did not bond, did not do what we needed to for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And so now we're behind. And the last 2 road bonds, I would say, get us to where we're like caught up to today, right? But we're still growing. Like Cooper ISD, Friendship ISD, the schools are still planning new schools because they see the growth, they see what's coming. And so it's like, okay, well, we have to continue to have a plan. So we're very active and like, okay, well, let's find a solution. Let's find a plan. What's the best economically without putting huge burdens on the citizens? Yeah. I think road bonds are great. I think it's like, for me as a citizen, I'm like, okay, I know this is a bond. It's going to take care of X. It's going to start here and stop here. Right. What I don't like is for government to say, okay, we're going to have to like increase property taxes by X amount to cover infrastructure. Well, there's no like idea of, okay, well, when can that go down? Like once the infrastructure is built and there's so many regulations on it.
That never goes backwards.
It never goes backwards, right? And there's regulations on how much they can, when they can't, how much they can decrease. So like, it's not to me, a fiscally good manageable way to pay for stuff like that. And it's different than like water or wastewater, things that are fee-based, because the fees pay for that. Right. And it's proportionate. Fees can easily go up and down. But roads in particular, that infrastructure side, I'm team bonds. Okay. Yeah.
I like the bond as well, but so what is the impact of putting those in? Like the loop going in, right? You're saying that's helping us catch up. What does the future look like after that? Like where's the growth coming from? Why is Lubbock? I have my own theory, but I want to hear yours.
I think this is one of the best places to grow a business, but I think the difference that we have from the business perspective is it's also one of the best places to raise a family. Mm-hmm. You know, I could have a solid career in Austin or DC. I'm not raising my kids there. Right. And I think people choose to come to Lubbock or even Amarillo or Midland or Wichita Falls, San Angelo, because like there's certain environments where I think this, especially my generation, is saying we want lifestyle, we want faith, we want community, and Lubbock's got it. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of times what we're seeing is, the business side is there. It's going to be there. It's great. But what's that next level? And you're seeing people choose based on family.
Yep. I mean, I can't disagree with that at all. I think that's very well said. On the business side, you mentioned our economy being diverse, but outside of, medical and, agriculture, what else drives the Lubbock economy?
Medical, education, manufacturing. The business development park up by the airport has almost doubled in the amount of business occupancy out there. We say agriculture, but also recognizing that agriculture is multiple different facets.
Right.
So you do have manufacturing for agriculture. Leprino and the milk plant is a whole new market in agriculture that we never had.
Right.
Growing up in Hereford and being in the Panhandle, my agriculture was cows.
Yeah.
And never did I really ever see row crops. And even when I came down here, they're like, well, you didn't grow up in ag. I'm like, I grew up in cattle. And they're like, well, this is cotton country.
Right.
And so there's, even though it's one type, there's varieties in there.
Yeah.
But I see huge leaps and bounds coming in here also for tech. And opportunities. We've got some legislation going through this session that's going to help us be a lot more marketable with LEDA for different tech companies they keep going to Plano or they keep going to Pflugerville or these places, and it's those places can't take the heat that you're needing, and they don't have the workforce.
Yeah.
We do. We've
Yeah.
got the environment you want. Come on out here. So I see potential expansion for that too.
There's so much opportunity from that also, just to maintain or retain the higher education of people graduating.
Mm-hmm.
How do we keep them in this economy?
Oh yeah.
And I think that's going to be a huge part of it. But the other thing that I think is huge, and everyone complains about it, which is 7 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was, when we first started coming down here, people were complaining about traffic increasing, and they were complaining about the city's growing too fast. I'm like, you guys, it's so funny because in comparison, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I lived in Las Vegas, Chicago, Austin, places that have horrible traffic, and you're just it's not even close. But one thing I think that it really has a leg up here is the location that Lubbock has on the freeway system throughout the United States, just from an infrastructure and a logistics standpoint.
Oh yeah.
And then if you mix that, and the other complaint that they had is land's getting too expensive. Well, you can still buy land for even $50,000 an acre, in the south side of town, is so inexpensive when you're talking about attracting large corporations that need access to available land. So where do you find that? It's not outside of large major metropolitan areas.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be in a business-friendly state. You want to be on a freeway corridor that makes sense for your logistics and transportation of whatever you're producing, and you have affordable land with all that infrastructure tied in, and then you have Texas Tech. So I think, it's only a matter of time, but I think that the ability to draw businesses here and to keep them, we have such an interesting proposition for that. Look at what happened with Waco.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they buy in Waco? Because you could buy land for $50,000 an acre, and you have access to Dallas and Austin and all the logistics pieces.
Well, and one thing too that I'm such a geek of what's your story? I don't know. My dad always instilled in me always ask people kind of where you're from, how'd you build yourself, and take the nuggets that apply to you and build upon your house. But so when I first started over here and I'm talking to these builders who are building $2-3 million homes in Lubbock, I'm like, what do these people do? They're not all doctors over here. What do these people do? Trying to figure it out. And they're like, well, that guy's a professional bowler. That guy owns an oil and gas company in North Dakota and different. And I'm like, what the heck? But our airport system, that's also a huge highlight of Lubbock, is it's super easy to get in and out. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are choosing, I can come and build an amazing house, have a great community, raise my kids,
Totally.
Have access to great land resources. But if I need to go and be transportable, it's super easy to get in and out of here.
Yeah.
And
I wish there was more direct flights to places, but
yeah,
take
no,
multiple
those are the
legs.
2-3 million people that are having their own planes sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah. We can lobby Southwest again.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you have a private plane, it really doesn't matter where you live. You can just live anywhere. But that is interesting. I mean, like in my neighborhood, same thing. It's like you meet people like, oh, I own like assisted living facilities, or I have, I own private schools, or like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is really diverse. It's not just, everyone watches Landman, and it's like, everyone's just oil and gas out there. I'm like, no, it's not. But that is it's such a big deal to have conservative, business-friendly people that made a lot of money in oil and gas, like to build around a community.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like, it's so, like DC, everyone makes money they're like a lobbyist or like a consultant for a special interest group. They're not interested in doing anything for the community or reinvesting in, why is Washington, D.C. has like one of the most expensive, richest developments in all of the United States, and then right a couple miles from there, it's like the poorest and most broken down communities. Like they're not reinvesting in their people or trying to improve anything. And I've seen nothing but that in Texas in general, but Lubbock specifically. That's why we stayed.
Yeah.
It's like my kids love their school. The people are amazing. I know all of my neighbors. Although the other day I called my trainer and I was like, hey, can you connect me with so-and-so? And he's like, yeah, I could. Or you could walk across the street. He lives across the street. I'm like, I'm a horrible name. I've never even met him. But like just that access and the fact that I really do have a genuine feeling here that like the business owners that I know and that I deal with, and even myself, are interested in taking the money that they've made from this community and reinvesting it and trying to improve it.
Yeah.
Like you can't put a dollar amount on that, I don't think.
And I'm pretty active in the nonprofit sector here in town, and it kind of goes back to that question you had asked me, like why go from the law firm to this? And I've always felt, and my husband, he used to make fun of me so much about it, but I'm like, I feel God's calling to just serve my community.
Yeah.
And so like I opened my law firm because I saw a need to like, I want to serve, provide affordable legal services for small businesses. And even at like home builders, like part of like where I felt God was calling me was, God says like, hey, here's your 200 clients. I'm opening a door for 700 businesses. Like come serve. And so like through all of this, I've gotten involved in nonprofit work and stuff. And what I love about this area that I didn't see in Austin, and I was in Oklahoma City for a little bit, didn't see it there, didn't see it in DC, was like your big wigs in town, your people with money are constantly giving. Yep. And they give without any hesitation. Or with a need for recognition. Yeah. We run West Texas Hero Homes, which builds mortgage-free homes for disabled veterans and first responders. And like, I don't have enough veterans signing up for the program to meet the amount of people that want to participate and help the program. Wow. And so like the generosity factor there, I think is so pivotal in the success of a community too. Like to say, not only do I want to run a business here and like, pour out of the community into my business, I want to give back in because I see the investment of if I bring up others in the community, it's going to be great for everybody. Yep. I love it. My friends, because I lived in all these like large major metropolitan areas, right? And my friends like have no understanding of why I live in Lubbock and like I genuinely will never leave. When my kids are grown and out of college, we might have a second home somewhere and vacation, whatever. But the truth is like it is the people, and it's like it's still full of cowboys and like the cowboy spirit and real like not in a way that's like a bunch of drunk people at a saloon having shootouts in the street, but in like, I'm going to do what's right. There's no moral posturing. So when you go to like places like Austin or, Chicago, it's a lot of moral posturing of like, I want you to know how good of a person that I am by the things that I say. And here you can tell
the community is rich in spirit and giving because of the things people do. There is no posturing with that. It's like, hey, I'm just going to like build a house for a veteran, and they're not like on CNN, like, this is what we do, pass my bill, like trying to posture themselves to do that. And I think more people could benefit from kind of ignoring all of that and doing exactly what you said. Like, once your family's taken care of, you're raising your kids the right way, you want to help your local community make an impact, like on your neighbors. Start with that. How about in your HOA? Then Lubbock itself, like, stop sitting around tweeting stuff and putting stuff on Instagram about what's happening in Washington, or, you know, this senator did this. Like, just put your effort into your family and your community, and your life will improve tenfold.
Yeah. I
that was a long-winded way.
No, I absolutely love it. And kind of like, it's twofold. We're still a community that will, like, when someone calls and says, well, my home builder is awful, my roof is leaking, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, did you call him? Well, no. But I posted on Facebook about it. I'm like, no. This community, you can call him or her, and they will respond to you. Yeah. You know, there's 2 or 3 bad actors out there. Great. They're not members of my association, but like there's people out there.
Name them right now?
No, I will not be naming anybody. But, you know, I love that spirit. And it used to annoy the heck out of me, though, when I ran a law firm, because, like, I'd have people come in and, like, okay, so now you need a contract for your business. And they're like, oh, no, we shook hands. I'm like, gosh, like, I grew up with that and I love it. But as a lawyer, I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, let's have a one-pager contract. We don't got to get crazy.
Right.
But it's, I love it about this spirit is people genuinely, and when you say cowboy spirit, that's, I think of like the old, I don't know, kind cowboys, like, but like, I'm caring about you, but I'm going to work my hiney off because I want something better for everybody. And so that the grit, the mentality, the heart of it, you just see it. And it's amazing across the community.
Yeah. And there's also like a lack of patience for nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
I also think is awesome. You know, it's not like this social pandering where, you know, everyone's kind of like two-faced. You know, you have some of that. You have that in the South in general of just like, oh, bless your heart, whatever. But like, people actually genuinely do care. And if you rub them the wrong way, they don't have a problem just like addressing that. And they're not passive aggressive, which I think is also important.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, you know where you stand. I know where I stand. And let's figure out if we can work together or not, instead of, you know, tiptoeing around it.
Well, especially like, I think a lot of people here realize we've got bigger, better, other things to do. And especially a lot of times where I had clients that had disagreements with other businesses or different things, and they're like, well, we need to sue them. I'm like, let's just sit down in a room. Yeah. Let's like, save both businesses thousands of dollars in mediation or different things, and see, like, can we sit down in the room and just chat it out? Yeah. And I love that environment, because if I have lawyer friends in major metropolitan areas, and it's like, you don't even like remotely start with that. You start with like filing against them, and it doesn't. But there's nothing good that comes out of that, especially when a conversation, because it's probably like a small just like misunderstanding, you know, can fix something.
I think that is a byproduct of this new like generation. Like, my grandparents weren't like that. My parents aren't like that. It's a byproduct of like, you can say things online without any consequence. So you're not getting beat up at school because of it. And in fact, if there's a conflict at school, regardless of what happened, everyone gets expelled. It's not like learning, hey, like, what happened? And people don't like, I read a statistic the other day that like, people under 25 interviewing for jobs only make eye contact with a person interviewing them at like 30%.
Yeah.
They don't even have the social skill to make eye contact during a conversation. So they definitely don't have the skill set of conflict resolution or just working things out. And we have this like this culture that you just post things on Facebook, or just, I'm going to sue you, let my attorney deal with it. and you're bypassing like the human needs of like, why don't we sit down? Let me hear what you have to say, and let me explain how I'm feeling. And let's figure out if we can have a resolution here. What do you think that is? Why are people like hiding behind that?
I don't know. I used to advise for a sorority in recruitment efforts, and that's kind of one of the most brutal
We
sides.
could do a whole
Oh my
podcast
gosh.
just on that. It sounds
Like literally. But like, you know, I would sit there and tell a young lady, you know, hey, you need to talk a little louder, and like concrete, good feedback.
Yeah.
And she would quit the next day. And it was like, you didn't even talk to me. You didn't even like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But they don't know how to handle it, and it freaks them out. But what I think,
like constructive criticism.
yeah, constructive criticism would just like send them over the edge. But a lot of times it's because they have never been put in the situation where they're forced to like, how do you do this? And I talk a lot with my staff about, you know, networking, communication, conflict management, all these things. Like, we don't think about it as exercise, but like, these are exercises that 4-H and some of these student like council, like some of these other things that I did and was forced into, like made me practice. And so like, I think as a leader, I'm having to, which the older generations didn't have to with us per se, but like as a leader, I'm having to coach them and saying, no, we're going to exercise this today. Like, we're going to exercise, like, we're going to sit down and talk about, hey, you didn't meet this expectation in the office. Let's chat through it.
Yeah.
And I can see sometimes when I'm having those conversations, like distress or anxiety or different things, I'm like, hey, I need you to like understand this is where we're going. I care about you early. But it's just, it's social muscles that they've never really worked on. And it's not until, like, I see it with the young professionals sometimes, like, you go to a happy hour and it looks like a Sadie Hawkins dance. Yeah. Like, you're in your little business corners and it's like, okay, no, come on, we're gonna go talk and introduce. But it takes the leader sometimes to say, okay, hey, we're gonna go exercise this muscle. Come on, let's go meet and learn about it.
Yeah, I have a theory about that too. Well, that happens in large social situations in general, but like you were saying, it is a muscle you have to build. And I think that confidence and a lack of confidence are built the same way. It is a string of doing, like taking action and making decisions one small increment at a time that builds confidence. Like, no one's born with confidence. No one just like comes out and is like, hey, like, I'm really good at this. Like, and there's a difference between that and cockiness. Cockiness is like a false sense of confidence that you like have to explain. But when you meet somebody that's confident, it's like understood. Yeah. Like, they're not boisterous. It's like, hey, this person's confident in what they do. Well, how did you do that? You did that by doing the right thing, having discipline and doing it every day for long periods of time, like learning how to play the guitar or hit a baseball or whatever. You didn't just wake up being able to do that. You had to, you know, learn how to do it. And lack of confidence is the same thing. And I think that the problem is that no one's struggling enough to actually build the confidence that they need.
Or they don't understand we're such an immediate generation, that they don't understand that, you know, to build that confidence, it has taken time. Right. Like, I'm not, like, I went and stood in front of a big group of people this morning and talked about home builders and did these things, and my new staff member was like, wow, how did you just do that? And I'm like, well, I didn't learn it yesterday. Right. Like, it has been 15 plus years of practicing. And let me tell you, Victoria at 27 wasn't doing that. Right. But Victoria at 35 is probably pretty decent at it now. And so, like, I think there's that frustration, especially when it doesn't immediately, like, if I did it 3 or 4 times, I should be good. It's like, well, that's not how it works. Yeah.
The immediate gratification culture is a problem. And like my mom, I'll give her huge credit for this, but like part of the reason I had confidence and had like a foundation to build upon that is because if I ever wanted something, I mean, from like a young age, when I ever wanted something, like my mom would make me go like order for myself at restaurants. go into the grocery store and like go pick the things out and meet her at the front to pay for it. Like those like little small things. Or like, if I wanted to sign up for basketball camp, for instance, I had to be the person that called. My mom didn't just like pick up the phone and like negotiate. She's like, you call them. Like she'd help to make sure I didn't do anything stupid and tell them I was like in, the 15 and unders when I was 10 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
But just allowing your kids to actually experience that social transaction builds confidence. And then if you get enough reps doing that, when you have conflict resolution or you have constructive feedback or criticism, you're not taking it personally like, oh, like I'm quitting. It's like, oh, this is that thing I need to do to get better.
Yeah.
And instead of looking at it as like a personal insult, you look at it as like, this person actually genuinely cares about my success. Mm-hmm. Like, how did that get lost?
Yeah.
Did they think you're just being mean instead of like, Victoria really cares that I get better at this thing. Like, how do you tether that back together?
I feel like, and similar to you, my dad was that person. And if you would ask me at 22, I'm like, man, my dad was so hard on me. Like he was tough. Like he made like, and so, but now that I look back, I'm like, no, that was love. That was investment in me as a human. And so, like, I think with some of the young ladies that I work with, it's like, I got to be hard, but I also got to recognize that, like, I got to change the tone a little bit or make sure they understand the why. Yeah. Like, because that generation yearns, like, they want to know the why. And so, like, I'm going to be hard on you, maybe tough on you. I'm going to push you. I'm going to push your boundaries a little bit. Like, we're going to put ourselves out there, but here's the why. And so, like, I think it's kind of a cool mesh of the generations a little bit because, like, my dad did not have anybody telling him the why.
Yeah.
Like, I told you, you're going to do it type mentality. And then you've got kind of this pendulum swing of a generation of that all they care about is empathy and understanding and different things. Recognizing your feelings and stuff. And so it's like we have a cool opportunity to wield them to say, hey, look, like we're going to push and move, but I will let you know. Like, because I also would have loved to have that other than like my dad's just being hard on me, but a cool opportunity to kind of mesh the two a little bit.
So being a leader and, you're still very young and extremely accomplished, but being a leader like in this environment, what are some things that you think are important and have like made you successful as a leader?
I think for me, one of the biggest things, and it's really been a journey that I've had the last 2 years, was really honing in on my identity. You look at my resume and the journey I've been on, and a lot of times I was embarrassed of it, but also frustrated by it because like I would be sitting in a room at 30, 32, having a resume of a 47-year-old and not getting respect because I looked 30, 32. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no. I have worked with the CFO at the tech system. I understand higher education finances. Like, I know how to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, I'm like, no, I got good Botox. Like, what are give me some credit. But, I used to take so much identity in my resume. And it used to put me down, or I used to always qualify my answers. Like, well, based on this experience, I think this, or especially as a woman, like, in certain rooms, especially being in a lot of male-dominated rooms. Yeah. But, these last 2 years, like really honing in, my identity is who God has called me to be. And knowing that no matter where my journey has been, like, first off, He's the one that sent me through all of that. But, like, my identity is to serve people and serve His calling and serve this community. Mm-hmm. And when I reset that every day, what's on my resume and who I've been doesn't matter. Yeah. God equips those He calls, right? Yep. And so sitting in a room and like I used to just think, man, they're not going to look at me or they're not going to listen to me because I look young. And it's like, no, He put me here. Speak and lead and be what you're called to be in this moment. Yep. And don't let those inhibitors get in there. And I think that's something like, because my generation, like had a resume like crazy by the time we graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not unheard of. But I see so many, especially women, like they put themselves down, or they put their resume down, or they're not being the leaders that they're called to be because they're mismatching their identity to that of like, well, I'm the CEO, or I'm this,
Right.
or I'm the mom, or I'm these things. That's like, no, your purpose and your identity and your calling are all completely different things.
Yeah, and you're not defined by your resume either.
No.
I think so many, like, especially, I think people have always done this, actually, where, and I've made this mistake too, where like you have success or accomplishment earlier, and then you think that is like the qualification for like the rest of your life's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I did this at 25. Like I sold my first company when I was 27 and like went and traveled around the world, and I just thought I was hot shit. You know, I'm like, I've done all that. I had no clue how much I still needed to learn. And if you can kind of get out of your own way and not rest on your accomplishments,
Mm-hmm.
and still be humble of like, hey, I have something else to learn, a new skill set to build, whatever, that can go such a like long distance for you in life in general as a skill set, right?
Yeah.
Like never, like my your dad had that quote. I can't remember what you said, but it was very similar to my grandfather's, which is basically, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And the only way to get in rooms that people are smarter than you is, one, you have to be humble and be willing, like stop being so convinced that you belong there.
Well, and there's something else too that I think as leaders, like we don't always talk about, is like, you think I'm a leader, so I'm going up, and it's this positive trajectory.
Right.
And it's like, one day when my oldest son is older, I'm gonna ask his forgiveness, because I spent this whole time when he was an infant and a baby, like I had a 6-month-old and I was traveling to Austin Monday through Thursday every week, lobbying, and like didn't have relationship with my kid when he was little, because I was going to be this, bad A lawyer mama. I was going to prove that I could do it, and I'm going to be a working mom and all these things. And it's like, because the reason I hustle so hard was because I saw that as a go down. I did not see that as like, if I was on this trajectory as a leader and I chose in this season to be different, that I was failing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no. This season, succeeding means this.
Yeah.
And so I think the identity goes hand in hand with that. But also being flexible and knowing like, what does success mean to you in this season? It's not always up and down, especially as a leader.
Yep. I mean, I think every like high output alpha personality deals with that.
Yeah.
I dealt with it. I mean, my wife told me a story after like our disciple group one time of, I was the same way. I call it my dark passenger of like, he's gotten me a lot of very rewarding places, but he's also caused a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife would sit at the top of the steps with our newborn, holding her, praying to God that the next person I called didn't pick up the phone, because she just wanted me to spend time with them while I was trying to like build a business, right? And that, one, it broke my heart, but two, I'm like, what really actually matters?
Mm-hmm.
Did that next phone call matter? But you're so in that, tunnel vision, I have to achieve this next thing, I have to get the company to this place, that you lose sight of the things that actually matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anyone that plays that scenario out to the end without recognizing that is like rotting from the inside out. You might have all the money in the world, your kids don't like you, and they don't know you.
Well, and again, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay for this season to look different. Who Victoria is when my kids are in college or something is going to be a completely different level. Like, that's when I'm going to open up all these extra businesses, all these things that I have like all these ideas for. Yeah. And it's okay if that timing is different, because in this season, succeeding to me means having a good family, loving my husband, serving the community, and the pace of it is different. Yeah. Like, that's okay.
Yeah. So on the leadership, I mean, I think that's really well said. And it's also great that you've adjusted that, because most people don't.
Well, and I don't
know?
succeed every day.
Yeah. Who does?
No, nobody.
Yeah.
But it's something that, I strive for. There's anyone who asks a woman, like, how do you balance being a mom and a working life? Like the fact that there is no such thing as a balance, like whatsoever.
Right.
It's what car are you on a racetrack? Are you putting more gas in and more nitrous in at one time? And it's like, okay, well, got to get the other ones to catch up. So I'm going to stop fueling this car. I'm going to fuel this other car.
So what's working for you? Like, it sounds like you've put a lot of thought into that, and you're obviously still operating at a high level professionally. But how do you kind of organize that in your life?
I think for me is I do quarterly assessments of my calendar. Like I go back and audit my calendar and where am I spending time? Does it match my goals and where I want time to be spent? But I've had to really I have a relationship with my calendar and I follow it, because if I don't, then I'm not meeting my goals. So I take my kid to gymnastics on Mondays. That's his gymnastics, his mommy me time. My husband and I have specific times every week with each other. And it feels regimented. But for me, if I go and look at that quarterly audit and say I did all that, I feel good about where I'm at.
Yeah.
And adjust it accordingly. We've got the parade of homes coming up. So that's just going to be 22 days of pure work.
Yeah.
So, I've got vacation planned after that to balance it out and stuff. But
where's the parade this year?
Crescent Ranch, which is kind of south, Friendship ISD, the Vineyards, which is kind of 50th and Upland, and then Stratford Point over here on Quaker and 138th.
Gotcha.
So some cool houses.
Yeah, that sounds like a crazy time. That's funny you say that. Me and my wife had to do the same thing. And it's the best thing ever, because when I first suggested it, I was like, man, scheduling date nights just sounds so unromantic.
Yeah.
It's literally been the best thing ever. And then, I take my daughter to tennis practice and spend that time, and I just leave my phone in the car. I sit on the tennis court and watch her play, and that I think it does a lot for her, but I think it does a lot more for me. Just being able to, see her attempting to get better at something and watching her personality bloom has been amazing. And the date night thing, so we don't drink alcohol. It's something I changed about, 9 months ago. It's been a game changer. That opens up a lot of really fun things that you could do on date night.
Yeah.
So we'll go eat sushi and then go get foot massages next door, and no one in there speaks English. Or if they do, they're, just pulling the wool over our eyes. They're just speaking in Cantonese behind our back. But we'll just sit there and hold hands, and sometimes we'll talk the entire hour, and sometimes we won't say anything. And just be able to exist with each other. That doesn't sound super romantic. It's not always a rose and a spontaneous date, when you first start dating somebody, but it's been the most beneficial, schedule item for our marriage and for our household.
So my dad's passed away, but right before he passed away, one of the funniest things he said was what is this gypsy crap you and Jeffrey are doing? But we were actually strategic planning. It was a faith-based strategic planning type deal for our family, for our marriage, for our finances, and all these things. And he was like, "What are y'all doing?" And I'm like, we're strategic planning for our family. And he's like, "That's so weird." I'm like, but this is how this is how I think of things. I'm an entrepreneur. I listen to podcasts all the time.
Same.
Why would I do strategic planning for my business and not for my family? And so for us, if Jeffrey and my goal is to make our marriage better, well, we got to put little metrics in there. And, the date nights, my husband's a vacation dude. So we have to get out of town, even if it's just Ruidosa.
That's how my wife is too.
He is constantly, sometimes we'll come back from vacation. He's like, okay, let's go to South Lake Tahoe next. And I'm like, I gotta work.
That's a great spot. I love South Lake Tahoe.
Oh, we love it.
Yeah.
Celebrity golf tournament.
Yeah.
But or strategic planning for our marriage. And so if you don't do that and build it in and hold it accountable, to me, I'm we spent the years where we looked up and we're like, crap, we haven't gone on a date night in 5 months.
Yeah.
And well, no wonder our marriage is not maybe the best as it should
no
be.
wonder we're a little annoyed with each other more than we normally are. We're not getting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. The organization and discipline in that, I think it's just made a huge benefit for us. And I've even done that like in my prayer life and like scheduling that. I know that sounds crazy, but like, a lot of people do that. I had to struggle with it at first because I didn't feel like I was praying with like an intentional heart because it was scheduled. So I was like, okay, now's when I'm going to pray.
Yeah.
Right. And so then I was like, what is going on? Like, I don't feel like I'm like hearing God's voice, or like, you ever pray and just like say things that you don't really mean fully, or like you haven't thought it all the way through and you're like, what am I talking about? What am I even saying?
I was talking about this the other day. Like, no one taught it. Like, I got taught to pray in Christian schools.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going to pray for the poor, the military, or bless our food, these things. And what I think is so cool about, like, especially where my family's at in our journey and our walk with God is like, no, we're reconnecting with the fact that this is a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I struggled with like, I'm struggling to wake up in the mornings and have my prayer time. Well, that is just not when the Lord has made me to do my prayers. Right. And refocusing, like, my prayer is my talking with God. And like, I'm like, okay, what part of my day is the most quiet, the most calm, the most opportune time for me to hear him and have conversation and grow with him. And it's like, it's driving. So when I drive from school to work or work to home, like,
you close your eyes on the road.
I don't close my eyes. No. But like that's the time where I can, they're on some Brandon Lake and like just sit in his presence and talk with him. And I had a friend who, we were in a CEO women's group with this entity called Kingdom at Work. And she challenged me. She's like, I just kept telling her, like, prayer time's tough for me because in the mornings, like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, I'm giving 5 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, it's been 4 minutes. And it felt like such a construct. And it's like, no, that's not what it's meant to be by any means.
Right.
And so, how do you have those conversations and what does it look like? Looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
But
I think the other aspect to that too is, are you listening for God, or are you just talking the whole time? Mm-hmm. I think that's a big missing part too, at least for me. And I'm still, learning how to pray also, and especially just like with a intentional heart and to like sit and listen without distraction. And a couple of things that I learned, because I listen to podcasts all day long. I love ambient noise, but I'll have an audio book on or a podcast on while I'm working or doing anything or in the car. Well, that's also a distraction. Like, your brain is preoccupied with that. Yeah. So, or I'll come home and turn a football game on or whatever it is, right? So I've tried over the last week, and this has been extremely beneficial. I won't watch TV in the evenings, and I turn off my podcast as soon as I like leave work. Like, I'm not driving and listening, so I just have that quiet time in my car home, just to kind of like reset my brain. And then I try to spend a few minutes before I pray, like literally just like listening. And even if I hear nothing, I'm like, my mental reset is like, okay, I'm ready to pray. I've kind of thought about the things I want to pray about and ask God for, or give gratitude for. And then after I'm done praying, I try to sit there still. I'm not praying for like 4 hours a day by any means. I'm just saying, it's like,
And I posed this to you via a story, but I had a moment with my 6-year-old probably a year and a half ago. And he came home and he said, "Mommy, I'm really sad. My friend in class told me he missed his daddy." And I was like, and he started crying, and I felt really bad for him. And I was like, "Well, why does he miss his daddy?" He was like, "Well, his daddy died." And I was like, "Well, Palmer, let's pray for him. Let's pray and like, let's pray for his heart. Let's pray for him." And he looked at me and goes, "Well, Mommy, it's not nighttime or dinner time." And as a faith-based mom, I mean, that was like a stab to the heart, right? Because I was like, is that what I'm teaching my kid is prayer? And so I pose that to you because you've got some kids too. Like, how are you growing and teaching your kids about what prayer looks like?
So I started scheduling my prayers, but I pray all day. Like literally, like I'll get in my car, I'll say like 10-second prayers or 5-second prayers or whatever. And so I try to do that. I'm trying to do that with my kids. And then I try to pray over my kids whenever I can, just so they, one, hear me doing it. Mm-hmm. And two, like, so that it doesn't feel like this is just something that happens before we eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I'll just say like little prayers. Like, I'll take my daughter to tennis practice. I'll just, hey, God, like, I hope that Charlotte has a great time doing this, and I hope she, finds enjoyment from it, and just keep her safe. Mm-hmm. Something small and short, right? And she's like, thanks. Like, it's like,
it's like a blessing.
Yeah. Well, my middle child will like be really happy when I pray for her sometimes, and then other times she just like mocks me and makes fun of me because she doesn't understand, what I'm doing. She's like, Daddy, you're so silly. She's like, why are your eyes closed? And you're like, I have my hand on her head. She's like, stop touching me.
Yeah. I also enjoy when the kids are like, Dear God, please let this broccoli leave my plate. Yeah. Amen. And I'm like, that's not a prayer. Yeah. Like, stop. That's and put the broccoli in your mouth. Like, that's not a prayer. Yeah.
Yeah. I pray with my wife. I'm just like, please make sure that all the laundry is folded tomorrow by 2 p.m. because I need. I did that one time as a joke, and it didn't go over very well. So
I actually prayed for our home builders golf tournament before each flight with everybody on the mic, and I was like, and Lord, please be with us and help us make good choices. Yeah. Amen. Yeah. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, we're going to make good choices. Make good choices. Yeah.
So as far as your nonprofit, do you want to let everybody know like what that is and where they could find it, how to donate, all that good stuff?
So West Texas Hero Homes, it's actually part of our main page. We're building out the new website right now. So you find it through Home Builders. So just call me if you want to support or be a part of it. We've got a build going right now for Corporal Michael Anderson. He's a combat veteran, and his disabilities come out of his combat service. And then we will be announcing another veteran coming up here in about a month and a half. But there's lots of opportunity, whether it's financially donating, partnering with us in a program. We host 2 events a year that support that. The first one we had actually this past Friday. Looking at me, you may not know, I am the only licensed combative sports promoter in Lubbock County. So we had a professional boxing.
You're like Don King.
That's what I am, of Lubbock, Texas, and everyone's really confused by it. But so we had a professional fight night this past Friday, and so we'll have that again next spring. But in September, on September 11th, out at Cook's Garage, we'll have Sawyer Brown and Kat Hasty. It's Concert for Heroes. So. Awesome. 2 big fundraisers, and that's really we don't want to like. There's a lot of things. I think that's really cool too about the community. Like, there's a lot of other stuff, so like we don't want to like host everything, but we'll have partnership opportunities. Whether you're someone who wants to partner with your hands and laying tile, or framing a house, or you want to go to a concert and support the effort.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll have to have you on again. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the time.
Appreciate it.